Why was Eva right for this role? As an actress, what does she bring to the table as that is unique?
Well, first of all, I think that Eva Green is unique. She's mysterious. She has this quality that very few actresses have nowadays. She is, she's totally instinctive. She's dangerous, she's fun, she's beautiful, she's sexy. She's one of a kind.
Do you have something to add?
No.
Has these two films been important for the French film industry as a whole, for example, in terms of their scope and ambition, or the cultural impact of their reinterpreting a classic French story like this in 2023?
Yes, I think the whole adventure of making those two movies is a very important thing for the French industry because, first of all, it's a very rare situation. I mean, to have such ambitious projects in this industry in France is something that doesn't happen all the time. Suddenly, you know, there is this this idea that we have to bring the French people to the cinemas with big stories, bigger than life, using our own history as a canvas for that. So, you know, these are adventures and risks that have to function in theaters. You know, it's depending on that, of course, there's going to be more of those, or less and less. Nowadays, I think that most of the producers, especially in France, I would say, are looking for something that doesn't cost any money and that eventually will make a huge box office at the end. And I'm not sure it's really about cinema anymore. So, yes, these adventures are important for the whole industry here in France. Okay. Do you agree with that?
I do.
The camaraderie between your two characters was very special in the first movie. How does this continue in the second film?
Yes, I would say D'Artagnan sees Athos probably as a father figure in the first film. But then through conversations he has with him, maybe their point of view about love differs a bit. So, and in the second film, I would say my character is going through a path of tragedy, in a quest for love that is probably doomed in a way. So maybe in terms of what he has inside, is leaning towards Athos a bit at the end of the second film.
How do you grow up and go through deceptions without becoming cynical? I won't say no more.
One of the most exciting elements of the new films was seeing the distinct individual character collide and play with the legendary story. Was that part on the appeal for you as actors?
Well, yeah, I mean, that's what we were saying a bit earlier on. It's the fact that, you know, there is this evolution between the character of D'Artagnan and Athos. It's, at first, you know, he becomes like a father figure for D'Artagnan, and then D'Artagnan grows up and has to defer with the view of Athos, and then finally becomes a bit Athos. You know, it's really, there's this thing in when you do psychology that is, there's a moment where you have to kill the father. And I think that's kind of the process that happens between them two, even though Athos is literally not his father, but that's how the dynamic works between them two, I think.
I agree. I would say, as an actor, there were like several appeals to the story, to the film. Getting to work with Eva, all the action I had to go through, the character himself, and of course sharing these scenes with Vincent was a big appeal for me, since I'm a fan of his work for a long time. So getting to know him, and to work with him was a blessing.
And now he doesn't respect me anymore.
No more.
Touches my chin and everything.
The tenets of honor and loyalty are paramount to the story. How do you that is the is? How do you that is relevant to today's society?
Well, these are valors that tend to disappear, but I think it's still very important, even though it might sound a bit utopic. I think it's important. I think that's one of the appeal why. That's one of the reasons why people are so intrigued and passionate about the Musketeers, is because they still have these valors, and yeah. Once again, even though it's something that tends to disappear, I think it's always good to remind people that it still exists, and that's how we should function somehow in society.
Yes.
Ladies and gentlemen, you're watching Hey You Guys!
Hey, you guys!
Hey, you guys!
Hey, that's what they all say.
Hey, you guys!
Hey, you guys!